Okay, so Mandy, can you tell me what your childhood was like?
Sure. I was a very shy child. I'm one of four kids, so I definitely have a little bit of that middle child syndrome. But it was a beautiful childhood. I did have a lot of issues with my hearing, so that's why I was very kind of standoffish and um, socially odd. I just was afraid constantly of not understanding the conversation well, so I just didn't really talk much to people, but my childhood was surrounded with love.
So when you first started experiencing trouble with your hearing, was it that you only could hear certain things, or you just couldn't get snippets of entire conversations, or
So it was a few different things. Like I had a period of time where my eardrums just stopped vibrating. I had a lot of ear infections that my actual like the wax that comes when I have an ear infection would eat through my eardrum tissue. And I had tubes in, tubes out, tubes in, tubes out, tubes in, tubes out, so many different surgeries. Um, it was just kind of a lot of different things that all swirled together, but it never prevented me from feeling like I was, important or cared for, or I did suffer a lot with actual pain. Um, and I wasn't allowed to put my head in water or go swimming with everybody else the same. But it wasn't a bad thing, just life.
when did that happen? Like when did that start happening?
So I think the earliest that I started having issues, I was probably like 6 months old. So I was young, and it was
Okay,
throughout my entire childhood.
okay. And then what do you think your fondest memory is as a child?
It's a difficult one. I have so many of them. I think the one that I've talked about a lot, the one that stands out is my mom put me in a choir class when I was like 4 or 5, and it was at church, and she just kind of dropped me in there. She had things to do, and I was given the sheet music for the choir that was rehearsing. That I wasn't a part of their choir, but they gave me the sheet music anyway, and it was the first time that I was in a room full of people who were working together to create something beautiful, but I had the words in black and white there in front of me, and so I got to be a part of the conversation and not just seeing it from a distance, and that was the real Kickstarter for me to creating and crafting this dream of being a part of music forever, but for the reasoning of having it be a part of this growing community and this sense of belonging and being able to give that to somebody else as well.
When did you, when did music just become a huge part of your life? You know that's what you wanted to do.
About then. I mean, I had a natural connection with music even when I was younger. Um, my mom would say that I came out whistling. Like it was just like one of those things. I gravitated to it, and I wasn't overbearing with it. I would actually listen and pay attention and memorize things. I surprised my mom once. The Lion King had come out, and I had memorized all of the songs and was singing them to myself, like, be prepared, like while I was playing in my room just alone. But she was just kind of surprised that I knew all of the words to every song and I'd only seen it
Wow.
once. I just memorized music so easily, and I think that some people are just musicians. It's kind of in their DNA and their code, certainly in mine.
Now, did you memorize them by just listening to it one time, or did you look at the words, or?
So for when I was younger, like I would listen to them. And then later I would have like the words. My mom would print out the words for me. Um, but we had very limited access to a lot of different things, and my hearing was good enough that I could listen to them, but it had to be in a very quiet space. I had to do it by myself. I couldn't have people talking or I wouldn't be able to hear any of the words. So it was like easy to do because I was a loner. So I was by myself a lot. And it's easy to find a quiet, isolated spot.
Is there a conversation you had with your mom or dad that impressed itself upon you that you still, even now, um, think fondly of or have kind of taken with you?
At that age, it's difficult. I just remember the love. Um, when I was older, there were so many different things that we had to battle through. I have a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And when I was a senior in high school, I dislocated my leg running in PE class. Really more of like light jog. I wasn't much of a runner. And I remember being very calm until I saw my parents walk into the room to get me, and I remember crying for the first time. I mean, my leg was completely dislocated, like bones crossed, and I didn't cry yet. And then when I saw them, I cried, and I was like, "I'm so sorry. This is gonna cost so much money to fix." Um, and the look on their face, and I just remember, you know, them both saying it at slightly different times. It's just like, we got this, we're going to do this together. And I think of all of the conversations that I've had, and I've had so many of them, I think the never ending feeling of not being alone and being loved was something that I've held on to through everything that I've gone through.
What do you think what's the hardest struggle for you that you think you've been through, or something you're currently going through, if you would think that that's like the hardest? What's been the hardest thing?
Physically or mentally? Physically, some of the hardest things that I went through was probably when, after doing the therapy for my leg, I had a lot of surgeries back to back, and um, it's a very humbling experience when you are fully at the mercy of other people. But I've never found that part of my life to be the part that I struggled with.
Mm.
Um, Mentally, I think for me, the barrier that I smack into the most is dealing with people's preconceived ideas of what I am capable of and what I'm not. I think when you have a difference or a disability, people have an understanding of who you're supposed to be based off of a caricature that they've seen, or a person that they've met in the past. And um the reality is that you spend your lifetime trying to open people's eyes and raise awareness and encourage people to understand that people are a lot more capable than the average person gives them credit for.
What's an instance where you've come up against that and it was hard?
Well, I mean, that's an everyday thing. I mean, there are people who don't want to uh, write music with me because they're afraid uh, that it's going to be difficult to do. There are people who, they're like, "Oh, I don't know how this would work out. I don't think that she can do this." So there's been lots of opportunities that have been
Mm.
passed over because they don't think that I'm going to find a solution to the problem, when in my eyes that's a non-issue. um that's that's an everyday thing. I mean, random recent situation, COVID
Yeah.
happened and everybody was in masks, so you're not lip reading anymore. It's all back to ground zero, back to when technology couldn't help me out, and I was put in a position where I felt lost and stupid all the time again. And you walk into a room and people are talking under masks, and you have no idea what's going on, and they don't have the time or the energy or the care
Mm.
to repeat themselves or find a solution. They just think that you're being ridiculous or that you're rude or that you don't need the time. So that's a normal, that's life. At this
Yeah.
point, I don't even see it as hard. I just see it as so typical.
What did you do you now as because you love music and you enjoy it so much, what how do you hear music for you, even if you can't hear it,
Yeah.
in the sense that typical people can, but how do you feel it inside that you can hear it to yourself?
So when I'm learning a new piece, like one that I've not written,
Mhm.
I use the sheet music for the song so I can physically see the notes and understand the melody of what's going on. You also get an idea, the key signature and the
Yeah.
timing signatures, and you can understand kind of how the song has been structured. Then I'll learn it that way and memorize it. And then from there, I'll have somebody play it, or I'll play the recording so that I can really feel the beat and the kind of the vibe that they're putting together. And then I'll have, counting measures so I can follow along with the sheet music that I have as a roadmap.
Mm,
And basically, kind of once I start trying to sing it, it's based off of how it feels on my throat, how it feels when I'm making the notes and seeing them in the visual tuners to prove that I'm doing them correctly, and then getting used to kind of those vibrations and those feelings
mm.
and until I have it memorized.
Now,
But it's
can
a
you
follow. So
are you able to hear anything at all, or is it, or even just muffled vibrations, or
I'm at 110 dB down in both ears. So if I turned it up loud enough to be able to catch something, I would definitely be hurting myself. However, I recently did get a cochlear implant. Um, and so I've been doing a lot of music therapy and sound therapy through the implant. Um, it's very, very hard to understand things with the implant for me.
mm,
You can get an idea of the vibe. But if I didn't have the lyrics in front of me, if I didn't have the sheet music in front of me, I would not understand a single freaking word of what's coming through that implant. It's so difficult.
mm,
It's so weird, and everything is it's just very, very different. I was explaining it to my friend Eric. He's blind, and he was like, "What does that feel like?" I said, "Well, it would be kind of like if you just suddenly could see, except what you're seeing is matrix code, and it's just green and numbers rolling down the screen, and it's not what you think it's going to be. And so you have to learn the code to be able to understand,
oh,
okay, that must be a tree, that has to be a car, that must be a person." And I don't know if it'll ever actually start looking or sounding the way that it should.
hmm. But that must be hard then, because you would hope you want that, and yet it's kind of experimental.
Well, so what it is doing at this point is that when you're talking to people,
Hmm.
you're using only a couple of different frequencies at the same time. And so the actual aid of using it for a person talking has started to become beneficial. It sounds crazy and robotic and weird, but I'm still adjusting. It's still new technology for me. Um, it will get a little better maybe, but it was 16 years of not hearing anything. It takes a very long time for your brain to relearn a completely different tool.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and so for music, you have so many different frequencies going all at the same time that it's kind of overload of information. And it's
Mm,
very difficult to strip it down to be able to get more than the groove, the beat, you
mm,
know. So I can play music through there and I can jam. But if you had a gun to my head and you said, "What are they saying?" I would be dead. I would not be able to know. Maybe if I knew the song really, really well and I already knew the words, I might be able to pick them up and sing along.
yeah. Do
Yeah,
you think there's a piece of music, either one you've written or one you've heard, that you think describes who you are?
that's difficult. I think that on any given day, your emotions and the things that you're facing in that moment can
Mm.
change what that song looks like and sounds like. I've written a lot of songs, and a lot of those songs, if you had asked me in that moment, does this encompass how you feel? And I would say 100%. But then there's a new day, and that's not how I feel anymore. Um, I think I think that a lot of people would want me to say that Try is the song that is the most me. Try certainly was an encompassing feeling that I had for a very long time. And I think that person who has given up, who needs to get up, who has the internal motivation to understand that if I don't get up, I'm wasting my life and there's nothing really standing in my way except for myself. I think that song will resonate with me forever because
Mm.
it was so much a part of how I felt for such a long time.
How about right now in the season you're in?
Gosh, it's hard. It's hard. I just wrote a song a couple weeks ago called Wake Up, and that's not out yet. I feel that way a lot. I wrote a song called Capable that's not out, that I feel that way a lot, where it's like the world is telling me that you can't and you can't and you can't and you can't. You're just like, but I'm capable of so many things, guys. um, I don't know. I think it would be like asking a painter, is there one singular color that expresses who you are? I think that's hard.
Yeah. How about if you wrote an autobiography? Do you know what you might title it?
Well, I wrote a book a while ago called Sensing the Rhythm, Finding My Voice in a World Without Sound. And I think that
Mm.
that was pretty poignant for the time. I think if I was going to write a book today, I would write about the strength of community
Hmm.
and, you know, breaking barriers one rock at a time.
Strength of community in what way? How is it strong?
I think that there are so many different ways that you can fail in
Mm.
life, and we run away from it so much that we prevent ourselves from even trying. And from my perspective, the biggest difference between somebody who is a success and or isn't is that they have people to cheer them on,
Mm.
people who can challenge them, to push them past their comfort zones, to lend them hope when they run out. I think if you try to walk through the world alone, um, I think that failure is can be something that is crippling instead of just a step towards success.
What do you love most about being alive? Like, what's the most beautiful thing to you?
People, people. I mean, my family, including my son, my extended family, in-laws, my spouse, my people, the people who have cheered me on and picked me up and sat next to me and cried and didn't say anything. It's all the stuff doesn't matter. It's the people that matter.
What would be the meaning of life to you?
Oof, it's a very, very deep question. My purpose for being here, I think, is to love love people more than I love myself and to show that light through my life. I'm a person who has a lot of faith. And so just trying to continue that love to other people so that they can see hope and joy and light as well.
Mm.
That's my purpose.
What do you think's the hardest thing about living out your faith as to compute it? So um, to live out your faith in the midst of struggle and also in the midst of opposition, because obviously not everyone has the same faith. And so how do you remain strong in that as you attempt to show people encouragement and love and um, kindness, and even what you're mentioning with people who can be flippant at times and having compassion for that?
Well, it's reminding myself that this is a very broken world. It's for me, my faith is rooted in God, and this place that we're in is a separated state. We're not there. We're separated from God. And so I don't have expectations that this world is going to be kind. I don't have expectations that it's going
Mm,
to be easy. And I don't have expectations that my life should be joyous and loving, at every moment and have everything that I need it to be when I want it to be just because I have faith. Um, it's messy, it's broken. We're in the muck, and it gives me so much peace and so much joy to know that it's temporary. So I'm happy, tread in the muck. Let's go.
and then is there um, an individual you look up to, either that's living or who has passed away, someone that you want to be more like?
I definitely have admiration for my parents. I'm
Mm,
very close with both of them. Uh, they've shown me so much about how it is to be a person who loves deeply, who bends over backwards, even if that snaps my spine in half, for the betterment of
mm,
helping somebody else. Patience and just genuine love. I have been so incredibly fortunate in my life to have so many people um, who I can look up to because they're just resilient and
mm,
with a smile on their face. They run straight into walls and into fire, and um, they do it again and again and again.
mm. What is there something you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Oh, there's lots of things. I'm only in like my 30s. I've got years of struggle ahead of me. Gosh. Um I would really like to see American Sign Language be recognized federally as an actual language. I would
Mm,
love to be able to continue to be a part of pushing for that to be true. I would love for it to be so commonplace and that, hearing about a person who has um, hearing loss or deafness, being a musician is so normal that people are just like, and
mm,
that's not a big deal. I would love to work myself out of a job because it's just so common and so popular that people are just not surprised that if you have a disability that you can't just be amazing. I would love for that to be true. I want to continue to face my fears, and to do it publicly so that other people can jump on the bandwagon and face their own. Um, Even if that means I have to swim with sharks. Oh my God. I think it just like had like a heart palpitation saying that out loud. I I just want to do so much. There's children's books that I want to write. There's albums that I have in my head that I need to get out. There's people and places that I want to go so that I can continue to spread around love.
And do you have a favorite book?
Gosh. Um, I don't know. My reading styles, I tend to have very eclectic styles of things that I read. I like murder mystery books. I like Jeffrey Deaver. I like fiction and like even Harry Potter and silly stuff like that. I just love people who travel and go to beautiful places in their minds. I love reading autobiographies and
Mm.
history. I love history books. So I don't have a favorite. I just enjoy when you can see passion and like real care. That I love that.
Is there a time period you'd visit if you could, like if you couldn't live here?
Well, the 60s. I don't want to go too far back because then you don't have running water and
Yeah.
toilets and everybody smells or dying of the bubonic plague. But I would love to go back to the 60s and really kind of immerse myself in the music scene. I think that would have been just, for lack of a better phrase, far out. That would have been amazing. Amazing. If not, I would like to go to like the 20s and 30s and really dive into jazz.
Yeah.
Those would be eras that I would go to.
And then is there something in nature that you really identify with or just love to watch or learn about?
I'm in everything. I love birds. I My grandmother was a really big fan of birds, and so I enjoy seeing them and studying them so that I can feel like I'm a little bit closer to her. I don't know. I'm just fascinated with how the world works. When I was a kid, I used to um, really be interested in how things grow, why things grow, and all of the pieces and parts that get it to here. So I love making things from scratch and really understanding the process, and that all of the work and all the tiny pieces and parts that go into everything that we kind of take for granted.
Do you do like any sort of art or like a hobby pottery or
I mean, I am not as artistic as my siblings are. My older sister Katie is the artist of the group. And she's quite amazing with it, but I'm not that. I do enjoy it. I love pottery. I love making things with my hands. I like doing baking and cooking and that kind of thing. I find that to be just as artistic. But
yeah,
I really do invest a lot of my time into audio art,
yeah.
music and writing songs and practicing practicing instruments.
Do
I
you
would like to
find
learn how to actually paint one day. I think that would be fascinating.
do you find it hard to balance a career with being a mom and a
Yes.
wife?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think that's true for anything. I think if you are pursuing your passion, it can be very difficult to balance your passion with the outside world of any capacity.
Mm.
If you're going deep into it, looking back when I was touring so much, I can't imagine, you know, being able to be the right mom and the right partner at that time because I just didn't have any time. And so now my priorities have shifted because I do have my son and I do have my family. And so finding balance is less about finding it and more about forcing it. Like I have to
Mm.
do this and this and this in order for this to be true.
Mm.
And for me to be able to be a support and a steady rock and a constant for my son, my day has to look like this. So I fit my passion inside of that world.
Wow. Yeah, that's very helpful. That's good advice. Um, just as a last question,
Mhm.
I know a lot of young women especially, and just I think women in general are there's like the world is very dark and there are so many discouragements and trouble will always come. There's not really a way to avoid that. Um, but how would you encourage young people, especially young women who um, like are trying to find a sense of meaning and belonging in a really just chaotic, difficult, um, and really just like confusing time
Yeah.
of life. Um,
And I don't think that that's ever going to change. I think that
yeah,
my my heart would say that one of the most important things that you can do is to find your community, find people who you can be connected with so that you can kind of keep going forward, people who can hold you accountable and who understand your core values so that you don't derail from them and you don't get pulled into different directions that you don't want to go into. Someone who can hold you to them. um my heart would also say that the world is going to tell you who you are and what you can and cannot do and try to put you in a box that's labeled and tells you what your capabilities are. But it's always good to remind yourself that the only person who actually knows who you are and what you're capable of is you. And you have to be your own advocate. You have to know you first. So instead of trying to appease the world, instead of trying to be somebody that other people are going to like, or be somebody who fits into the mold of what you think other people should be, really do the work and discover who you are. Who what is the core you? And to hold on to that because you're the only one who has that ability.